This is a pair of Infinity Crescendo speakers that I am working on for a friend of mine. And these are CS-3007. These things were made from 1993 to 96. Original cost was $1,100 a pair. Very nice set of speakers. Two 8-inch bass drivers and bass reflex configuration, and a smaller 4-inch mid-range that's in a sealed cabinet. It's got a little round cabinet right behind here, and then a little dome tweeter up there. So this side has already been refoamed. See, it's got nice new foam on it. Woofers are moving nicely here. And the mid-range, since it's a air suspension, you can see it's kind of slow to move, which is what you expect from a sealed box unit. Now here's the unrestored side, and you can see that the mid-range moves in and out much more easily. So it's got some leaks in that foam, or air is leaking right through the deteriorated foam. These are from 1993, I believe, according to the date codes on the back of the drivers, so about 25 years old now. So one thing I wanted to show here is, if you're trying to buy a set of these, what to look for deteriorated foam that needs to be, surround foam that needs to be replaced. Again, that's the old stuff there, and here's the new stuff. This is nice and compliant and not sticky. The old stuff it gets real gummy and sticky, and you see how you just rub it and it kind of falls apart. Now if you're buying these from somebody who's maybe selling them at their garage sale, you don't want to come up here and just poke your finger through it and say, oh, those need new foam, because they might say, oh, you destroyed my speakers, you got to buy them. But if you're buying these from Goodwill, you could probably do that just to test them. But if you again just want to see what kind of shape they're in, you could just kind of slowly come up here to the edge of it and just kind of rub your finger there on the edge of the foam. You can see how that just falls apart, where this, it doesn't do that. So these obviously need replacing, and certainly 25 years, that's probably about the limit of foam surrounds on most speakers. So since we've already done these and it was not too difficult, I'll go ahead and show on camera what it takes to restore these speakers on this side. All the drivers of these, what do they call these things? Infinity Crescendo speakers. They're held in by a hex head bolt. This is a 3mm. So you just go right in here and spin these off. Pretty easy. They're not real tight. See, that one's popping out already. A little bit of the stuffing coming out with it. These speakers and speaker cabinets are actually very well made. I'll show you a couple of things I really like. I'll get this one out. You can see, even though this is a bass reflex vented cabinet type of enclosure, it's completely filled with stuffing here in the bass chamber. And these speakers, again, date coded 1993. It has two different size little lugs down here. The smaller one is for the negative, and the larger one is for the positive. So you really only have to mark those. So that's one driver out. I'll go ahead and pull the rest of these out, and we'll take a look at them. You can see too, the thickness of this baffle is, I don't know, it's at least an inch thick, I think. Let's take a look here. Maybe more. About an inch. maybe 1.25 inches. And if you feel in here, you can feel bracing, corner braces on all the joints. And up here there's a big cross brace too. We'll take a look at that after we pull this one out. I also like how this these speakers are recessed in too, so that the plastic, the speaker surround here is flat with the front of the baffle. It looks better, and I think it acoustically has some advantages too. Okay, got all 4 of those out, I believe, and out comes the second woofer. Get it disconnected. And there you can see the cross bracing inside the cabinet. There's the bass reflex port right there. You can see how well built these cabinets are too. This is actually a real wood veneer on the outside all around, even on the back side of the speaker, not just vinyl wrap as you normally would see. And again, if we take a little tour inside, you can see the cross bracing. And up there is the mid-range tube. And speaker wires running around, and all the internal bracing you can see that's on all the sides here glued in. Again, there's the bass reflex tube, and you see even in the mid-range port, that's all filled with stuffing. And let's look at the back real quick. And the back side of the speaker cabinet, again the bass reflex port comes out the back. And it's got 2 sets of connections here so that the speaker can be bi-amped. One set goes to the 2 bass reflex bass drivers only, and then the other 2 go to both the mid-range and the tweeter. Or you can just short them together and use a single amplifier. Very nice. Now to refoam these drivers for the Infinity CS-3007 speakers, I'm going to use the kit from Simply Speakers. This is a custom kit made for just this set of speakers, which includes 4 of the 8-inch bass surround foams and 2 of the little 4-inch mid-range surrounds. We'll go on that one. And they give you 2 tubes of glue. I'm probably not even going to use 1 of these tubes. They give you plenty of glue to do this job. I really like this the Simply Speakers technique of using this fast setting glue and self-centering the voice coil rather than trying to shim, removing the dust cap and shim the voice coil. That would be really hard to do on this particular type of speaker because you can see the dust cap is kind of fitted. It's kind of a little concave dust cap that's made out of plastic instead of the traditional, one that puffs out. So it would be real hard to remove, and I don't want to ruin that look. So we're going to go with this type of system. Now, in order to remove this foam, which we see is really bad, just falling apart, we need to remove this plastic gasket or trim ring. So what I've found is a good way to do it is to take the razor knife and get in here just between the plastic and the metal frame. If you look closely, you can kind of see where that is. And just run this around there to break the glue bond. I'll just kind of run this around a couple times. And then with the bass speakers, I found you could just reach here and pry up on this ring a little bit and pop it loose. See if it works this time. I think it will. With the mid-range, it's a little bit more of an effort. Okay. Now it's stuck a little bit more. There it comes. So just keep rolling around and pry up with your fingers, and then kind of hold down with your back part of your hand just to get it to pop loose without breaking it. And there we go. It pops right off. So what we'll need to do with the knife now is come around here and get rid of this foam residue, so that we can glue this back down again once we replace the surround. So that's the process of just going around there and cleaning that up. And we'll also have to do the same thing with the foam. Go ahead and move this all at one point here. There we go. Now, what I'll do is take the razor knife here. I usually like to do it like this. I don't know if you can see it, but down here and just start peeling away like that. You usually have to make a couple of passes here because you can't get it all in one shot. I got most of it off of the metal frame. I'll make a few more passes here. This is the idea. You just want to get all the old foam peeled up off of this, and as much glue as you can just to make a nice flat surface to glue the new foam down to. I have to get 100% of the glue off, just the foam, because the new foam won't stick to the old foam. That's pretty much got that part off. Now this part here on the cone itself, I'm going to use some light action because you don't want to scratch this plastic cone with the knife. So be a little gentle. Just kind of roll around here and lightly scrape right there where the old foam is. You can kind of reach back here between the holes in the basket and hold the bottom of the cone. You can see you're getting the little bits and pieces of it off. This just gets the major part of it off. The rest of it we'll use a little bit of rubbing alcohol. It kind of dissolves this old glue and deteriorated foam, and makes it a little easier to clean up. It's got most of it. And what I do too is take a little rubbing alcohol here. This isopropyl rubbing alcohol. With a Q-tip. And just kind of soak that part right there. Still the real sticky foam. Let that sit a little while. I've got a paper towel here. And then just come back and see how it just kind of all comes off on the paper towel. So that's kind of the idea. I'll go ahead and do the rest of this. And then when it's all cleaned up, come back and show the next steps. Well, actually the next step, after this is all cleaned up too, is I started with this thing too. There's two things you want to do. Is you can see this is a bunch of just the old foam that's deteriorated and stuck on. This is how the trim ring was originally glued onto the speaker, with this little inner surface here was glued down to the foam, and then the outer surface right about here, this one was glued to the metal basket. So you take the knife and trim off as much of that old glue that you can so that it'll fit back on again. But you want to get all this stuff here off. And you take your time kind of going through and making this look real good. Dig down in here in the little recesses, and and then also make sure you get it all off on the inner side, inside circumference here. That's what's going to show. You may need to take the knife and kind of gently pull that off too. So I'll finish the rest of this, and then we'll come back and start putting it together. A couple more things to point out on the cleaning of the speakers too, or the speaker cones. So once you've completed this, and you keep using this alcohol on the edge here where you're trying to clean up, where you're going to glue the new foam on. And see, once you've done it enough, eventually the Q-tips will come up and won't have a bunch of blackness on them anymore. They'll kind of be fairly clean, because these are starting to come up that way. So now a lot of this you couldn't really do if you had the traditional paper cones, because you can't be that rough with them. But these plastic cones, they're a little bit more durable. That's pretty much done. Now the one thing you want to do too is there's some streaks in here from where you use the alcohol. So this is just a wet, real soft terry cloth. So I just kind of get in here with that and use it to kind of get the residue of the alcohol, and with alcohol kind of rubs into the black deteriorated foam, it kind of streaks it a little bit. So just clean that up with a little bit of water, just so it looks nice. And also there's a little bit of, on the outside edge here, there's some glue that is remaining on the basket from when it was originally glued to that plastic frame. So you want to get that scraped off too, just so that the plastic trim frame will go back on again. It's looking like it's going to work. Alright, so that is just about ready to start assembly. And take a little bit of alcohol too on here just to clean up this metal edge here, just to get any remnants of sticky foam residue off of that. There we go. Ready for the next step. Okay, so we'll go ahead and apply the foam here. So this will fit on right like that, and you want this edge of the foam here to cover up, or just cover up as close as you can to the kind of witness mark, at least, of the old foam. So that's, since that's there, that helps you kind of place this foam, because you get it right on that edge, and you know you got it dead center. So that's what I'll try to do. So in order to apply the glue to the foam, just take it on, turn it around on top of the speaker, sit it upside down. And I'll use some of this fast setting speaker glue and just run a little 1/8 inch bead here, kind of on the back of the foam. And it's kind of the easiest way to do it here on these the type of speaker that doesn't have a flat spot on top. It's just a, what do they call it, edge attack or whatever, or edge attach. So you just kind of get a little 1/8 inch bead on there, and take your finger and spread it out. There we go. Looks pretty good. Okay, now try to get all the glue off your fingers, and then just take the foam, flip it over, and place it right on top of the cone, and center it as well as you can. Press down the inner part of it so that the glue starts to attach. And this is the point where you can get it kind of lined up by pushing it in a little bit. It's not exactly centered. There we go. That's centered pretty well. Now you can still move it around, for a minute or two while it's starting to set up. But fairly quickly, within a couple of minutes, this will be glued down. So we'll just keep going back here and making sure that it's set properly. If you're off a little bit, you're just going to push it in so that it lines up properly. Okay. Now, what you can do too is put your finger through the back here to hold the cone so that you can press down on the foam. Okay, that's pretty good. Give that about a half an hour to dry, and then come back and glue the foam down to the frame. Alright, the glue is dry. Now that's attaching the foam to the cone. So we'll go ahead and add the glue to attach the foam down to the frame, and do the centering of the voice coil. So, same process again, use the same glue. And what we're going to do is just reach down underneath here and put a bead of glue down right here where the foam is going to lay down. It's right to the metal. Okay, let's go all the way around once. Recap that. Now to spread the glue, just push this down a little bit. If you look, once you do that, you can see that the glue is spread on the bottom of the foam and flattened out. We used a finger before on the inside edge, but this is all you have to do on the outside edge. It's just kind of spread it out that way. Now it'll cause the glue will cause the foam to kind of curl up like that. But don't worry about that. That's just kind of what it does. That's what it's supposed to do. As the glue starts to set up, then this will start to lay flat down against the metal, which you'll see. When it starts to stick is when you want to start checking for rubbing. And it was rubbing just a little bit, so I had to move it over here. You want to check. Let's see, I come this way a little bit. So push right in the center to get it. Make sure it's not going to rub. And if you push here and you hear it rubbing, and here you don't, that means you need to come this way a little bit with the foam. There we go. Now I can press on the 4 quadrants, the 4 sides, and not hear any voice coil rubbing. So when you can do that, you know you're kind of centered. And that's something you want to keep checking as this glue starts to stick and cure. So dead center, you shouldn't hear anything. Yeah, I've got it now. It was rubbing right in the middle, so I had to draw it this way a little bit just to prevent the voice coil from rubbing. That's why when you're doing this you need to have the room very quiet so you can hear any slight rubbing of the voice coil. Some speakers this is really easy to do, some it's a little harder. I think it has to do with the amount of gap there is in the magnet and the voice coil. Sometimes it's a very tight clearance to give a very good response on the speaker, but it makes it a little bit harder to center. But it's actually not difficult at all. Just gotta listen. Now the glue is starting to set up. So you just run your fingers around the outside here to get it to stick down. You can see how it's not bubbling up anymore. It's stuck down to the frame. And we're still not hearing any scraping. So pretty well centered. To be honest, these are probably the hardest speakers that I have had to do, or the hardest as far as centering the voice coil. Normally that's just an extremely easy procedure. It's almost automatic. These you do have to play with just a little bit to get it just perfect. Okay, so that's about done. We'll let this go ahead and dry another 10 or 15 minutes before we glue on the trim ring, and we'll be done with it. Alright, we're going to go ahead and put on the plastic trim frame now. So that involves using the same old glue that we've been using all along. And put just a small amount on this outer edge here. This is the innermost ring, which is where the foam was glued down originally from the factory. Here to do the same thing. So the trim ring was glued to the foam on this surface right here. That would be a full ring of it. And then right in here is where the plastic was glued to the metal frame. So I'll just add a little bit of glue out here too to get this thing to stick down. Okay, that's probably good. So now you just line up the holes here with the holes in the metal basket. And push it down. Alright, just flip that over and let that set. We'll be done. Alright, time to do the little mid-range speaker. So, last time I did on the other one, I had a hard time getting this plastic frame off. So let's see if I have the same issue here. Go ahead and like I did on the other bass speakers, kind of try to break the glue bond here between the plastic and the metal. I'll go ahead and take this out. Get it out of the way. And what I'll do now is try to just go right in here between where the foam is and the that plastic frame, and see if I can get the knife in there and break that connection. Stuff is very sticky and gooey when it gets old like this. Let's see if I can get the screwdriver in here and do a bit of prying. Don't pry too hard because I don't want to break that plastic. Okay, in order to keep this video not too long, I'm going to go ahead and turn off the camera, work on this some more, and see if I can force that up with the screwdriver. Alright, I went ahead and went around a couple more tries with the knife, so it feels like I've broken through most of that foam. And it's the gooey foam here between, where it goes between this plastic and the metal frame. So I'm just going to try to get in there with the screwdriver so I can get this to start to move. Oop, there it popped. It's gone off. There we go. Okay. So now this is really the same thing that we did on the bass speaker. Is just take the knife, clean all the old foam off, clean it off with the frame, and glue the new one back down. So I'll start working on that, get it cleaned up. Alright, ready to glue the foam onto the little mid-range. This has all been cleaned up, both the cone and the frame, and the trim ring. Really just like the woofer. No real difference except for it was a little smaller. So we take the foam that fits right over top of where the old one used to be, turn it upside down, and use the speaker as a turntable, just like we did on the other speaker. And just put a little bead of glue down. Okay. And like before, use your finger to spread. Okay. Now I'll just flip this over and drop it down on the cone. Try to get dead center so that it's right where the old one was. Okay, just about like that. Go ahead and keep pushing this down for the next couple of minutes till this glue sets. It works pretty quickly. Alright, the foam is well attached to the cone now, so it's time to get in here and glue it down to the frame. These little speakers are a little bit harder to work with just because they're so small. And just put a bead on the metal frame all the way around. 1/8 inch bead. What we're shooting for. There you go. And we'll squeeze it out. There you go. Again, this foam does the same thing as the foam on the woofers, how it kind of curdles up until the glue cures a little bit. And we start centering. So I'm pressing the middle of the dust cap. I don't hear any voice coil scraping. This will start sticking. Here we go. There we go. It's pretty well centered. Okay, that's pretty good. As you can see, it doesn't take long to get this laid on and get stuck well. So we'll give that another 10-15 minutes to cure. Then we'll put the trim ring back on, and we'll be completely done. Okay, and to glue down the ring, just same thing, a little bit of glue on the surface of it there. Too much here. Take some of that off. And line up the holes. There we go, all done. I only used one tube of, not even one tube of glue, so the 2 tubes they give you is more than enough. Well, the Infinity speakers are all done. Got all the drivers back in. Just been listening to them a little bit. They sound really good. See if I can get this to start up here on Pandora. Sound great. And here's the speaker covers for them, which I just cleaned, so they'll go back on here. Yeah, look like that. So that'll do it for this video. I love the sound of these. Certainly if I could find a pair at thrift store, I'd definitely pick them up. Probably not going to though.